Well, hello. Here we are for another session of our Global Authenticity with Authentic Communications. I'm Norma T. Hollis. I am your co-host, and here is Barry. Say hi, Barry.
Hi, my name is Barry. I could tell you're almost going to get that right, weren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to get it right. I'm going to surprise you one day, but it's not today. Barry Akatel, thank you. I have to say that in my sleep 1,000 times, and I'll have it right one time. So, Barry Akatel and Norma.
And I guess the most interesting thing is I'm here from Australia, and you're in America, so we're in opposite ends of the world.
Yes, and that's what makes it so authentic, because we can come across the world and talk about something that's near and dear to both of our hearts, and that's authenticity. So we're glad to be here to share with you again today, and we're going to go a little deeper in our conversation on intuition. We talked last week about how intuition is so important and is the foundation of authenticity. It's hard to be authentic without listening to your inner voice. You think you can do that, Barry, and be authentic without hearing the voice that's talking within?
It's been my inner voice that's really guided me my whole life, and ultimately I always believe that's the correct answer that we always, people often go, I've got to go and get a reading of someone, I've got to ask someone about something. We could spend a lot less time doing that if we just slow down and listen to ourselves and really trust that. And I think that's the way to go. That's for me. Even today I'm still doing that,
Yeah, and it's something that we have to remind ourselves on, even with us knowing that. I don't know about you, but I have to constantly remind myself also to slow down. And as a matter of fact, just about 2 days ago, I was leaving the house, and I was reminded, like it was just yesterday morning, and I was reminded that I had left my calendar. And oftentimes I'll say, I won't need it. But I'm trying now to listen to my voice more. And so I went back. I was very obedient. I went back and got the calendar. And it's a good thing I did, because at the meeting that I was at, somebody actually asked for an appointment. And if I hadn't had my calendar, I could not have consummated that appointment at that particular time. So it's so important to listen to that voice and follow it. Do you have
tips? And I think the last part is...
Uh-huh. Go ahead.
Look, I think all the time, and I think the last part is the following it, because, I can also do the other extreme where I absolutely know I should do that, and I justify all the reasons why I don't do it.
Right.
And then I actually do need it as well. So it's the times that when I do follow that inner guidance, it's almost like it shows me that those situations crop up all the time, and they're almost like daily basis for me rather than, every now and then sort of stuff.
Yeah, well, the one thing about with spirituality and authenticity and intuition is that they are really very intangible type concepts. You can't hold authenticity in your hand. You can't hold intuition. So sometimes it's hard for people to really connect with what we're talking about and really make impact in their own life in that way. So I think what would be helpful today, Barry, if we talk about some actual practical ways that people can connect with their authentic self. Do you have some suggestions for people?
Look, I've got a really wonderful process that I use, and it's really, I believe the first part is to get your own mindset into order and the way that we think. And there's a lot of information out there about positive language skills and how the neurons in our brains will operate according to what we're thinking.
Right.
And so one of the easiest processes that I use to support that is by having just a little notebook. And on this notebook, I've got a left-hand side and a right-hand side of the page.
Mm-hmm.
And on the left-hand side, I'm going to write down any thought processes that I think that I may want to change. And it might be, I don't have enough money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let's say on the left-hand side, I'm writing down, I don't have enough money. And I may be telling people the story about how I don't have enough money. And I may be not even telling people, but the story's going within myself.
Yes.
And part of what I teach when I teach sabotage clearing is that people may even give themselves an affirmation like, I have lots of money, but at the back of their brain they're saying, no, I don't. And the no, I don't has a greater feeling than the affirmation. So the way I actually do this is on the left-hand side is write down what is going on at the moment. And it might be the statement, I don't have enough money.
Okay.
Now, the second part of this is the tricky part, and that's to rearrange it in such a way that you believe in it. So shift it to a positive language approach that you can believe in. So to have an affirmation that says, I have $1 million, when you haven't got enough money to pay the electricity bill, is not going to really cut it for you in terms of your feeling centre.
Not believable, huh?
So it's just a little bit of a stretch for us.
A bit of a stretch, yeah.
And I know one of the people who taught me sabotage clearing used to talk about, how can you win lotto when you haven't even won the meat lottery at a local club? And the last 3 times I visited him, we went to the local club, and each time we won the meat lottery. So I thought that was quite amusing that, we could actually organise ourselves to win the meat lottery, because that was the one that we tell people, start with that.
Right.
But the process with this is I don't have enough money, is we then work with it and say, how can we shift that to a more positive language? So it may be, we might even start with a word like increasingly or more and more, because that's sort of something that we can take on, like it doesn't have to be 100% financial.
Uh-huh.
It might be more and more I'm attracting income into my life.
Right.
More and more I'm attracting money into my life.
Uh-huh.
And that could be something that we could believe in a lot more than, I am really wealthy or whatever it is. It's just allowing one piece at a time.
Right.
So when you get that piece, you write that down on the right-hand side of the page. And on the right-hand side, you write down the affirmation that you can most relate to. It might be increasingly, I'm attracting money into my life.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And what happens then is it may take a while to actually get from that left to the right-hand side. And that might take 10, 15 minutes in some cases to do that.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty is the next time you say to yourself, I don't have enough money, you can open your notepad and you've already done the homework. You've already served what the left-hand side is and what your new right-hand side language is.
Right.
And after you do this 2 or 3 times, you can then you'll know what the statement is, and your mind will automatically change it to, I'm attracting more and more, I'm attracting money into my life.
Right.
And that's what you'll then start to see happening in your life.
Yeah, I love the exercise. I have one similar that I've done. I kind of got to it a different way. And actually, one time when I was speaking, I made a decision to kind of listen to what I said in between the thoughts when I wasn't talking, to see what my self-talk was. And when I finished speaking, I just wrote down everything I could remember that I said to myself. And I had about 30 statements. And that evening at my room, I went and looked at them, and I was really amazed that all of them, but maybe 1 or 2 were negative. So I did the same thing that you talked about. I went and took every statement and I rewrote it in a positive way. And it took, what I was disappointed in, or my expectation needed adjusting, is that my thinking was that once I got all this out of me and rewrote everything, that everything would start changing and I would start seeing some immediate modification in my thinking and my behavior. And in reality, to talk about true authenticity doesn't come in a heartbeat, in a snapshot. It is something that is acquired over a sense of time. So it took a few years for me to come from all those negative thinking habits that I had to turn them into more positive. But in the process of doing that, similar to the suggestion that you have in the writing skill, I found myself connecting more with my natural gifts and talents, and therefore stepping into my own authenticity in such a way that I could embrace it very naturally. And it was just an easy transition. Took a minute, took a while, but it was a very reasonable transition that has resulted in my being more authentic. So I applaud you on that exercise, because it really has phenomenal results if you just stick with it.
And I totally agree with you. And the beauty, it is a process that we go through in our lives, that transformation, if you like, from our old selves and our old way of thinking, right, into something that people say, gee, how do you think about this all the time? How do you remain so positive? How do you keep going? How do you keep that resilience going? And it's because it's been a process of a number of years for me where I've managed to continue to do this, and I still have to do it. This is something that I still continually do even today, that I can get some of those negative thoughts that may crop in.
Right.
And I just continue this process. And so I don't believe it's something that we ever finish. I think it's always something that we can always go even higher and into a higher level.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly. And some people might even think that when we talk about modifying our thinking or changing the negative thoughts to positive, that we're not being authentic. And that's not true. And I want people to recognize that the true authenticity within all of us is the positive side of who we are. It's society and our experiences, our life experiences, that twist and change us from the authentic, positive person that we were born as to the person that may have doubts or fears or be uncomfortable or, again, need to shift back to being more positive. So it's helping you to step into the more authentic part of yourself. Would you agree with that, Barry?
And that's something we spoke about. That's something we spoke about last week, about how our higher authentic self is really who we are. And sometimes people say, oh, that's your ego. Who do you think you are to be so great? Well, for me, it's the ego that tries to push us down, and it's our greatness that we all have is our true selves and our true authentic self.
And I would agree with that. That's a very true statement, because we're always told to not be so boastful and not be so egotistical. And while it's important to make sure that we keep others in mind as well in the things that we do, it's also important that we acknowledge who we are and what our gifts are and what we bring to the world. And some may call it egotistical, and maybe it is if you go overboard with it. But without it, you don't know who you are, and you don't have your authenticity. So it's really important to step into that who you are and to accept it and acknowledge it and allow it to thrive.
Totally agree with you. And life as a result of that will seem to almost become miraculous and change in front of your eyes. It's just that wonderful.
Yes. The way life's supposed to be lived. Authenticity is putting purpose over profit. So finding your purpose is one of the first key steps of really stepping into your authenticity. And turning those negatives into positive is one sure way to help you become more authentic and more positive at the same time. Thanks for that great tip, Barry. I appreciate it. I'm sure our listeners and watchers would appreciate it as well.
And thank you for adding what you did. I think this has been a wonderful process just to combine both of our knowledges, if you like, in creating something that I'm going, wow, this is exciting, and I want to try this again myself. So
right.
Hopefully everyone listening has that same situation.
I hope so, and I hope they'll continue listening, because we have so many wonderful guests. We're going to be bringing in guests from different parts of the world who are specialists in authenticity in their part of the world. And what we're finding so interesting as we're interviewing these people and deciding who we're going to bring on as guests, it's interesting to find that no matter where in the world you might be, authenticity still is something that people are very concerned about. So it'd be interesting to learn from other parts of the world. We've got with South Africa coming, and Spain, and I think the UK and New Zealand, and we're still looking. So if any of you out there are also specialists in authenticity and would like to share your story, please be in touch with us. We'd love to know about you and how we can support your work and expand our global authenticity network. Thank you so much.
I'll just let people know It's normahollis.com and barryoffertel.com. So it's just either of those websites you'll be able to find more about any of these projects.
Right. Thank you for mentioning that, Barry. And I'll see you next week. Take care.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Norma. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
All righty. Good night.